Okay, so if you're in the news, of course, the world markets was roiled on Monday, and commodities were not an exception. Gold moved up, crude oil went down briefly. Nigeria's benchmark Brent crude fell slightly below $60 a barrel, but back above 60 this morning. But just a few minutes before we came in here, it's just at the doorstep of $60.01. The crisis, the turmoil is not over yet. But let's put this into part of the commodities burning issues this morning. Bolanle Abaje from Financial Derivatives Company is here live to us on this. Good morning. It's good to see you. This is as hot as it can get.
Yes.
And I'm sure we all had a bit of a sleepless night trying to wrap our heads around what's going on, where markets are going. What's your reading at FTC yesterday, watching all this brouhaha going on across various asset classes?
Yeah, well, you know, when President Trump tweets, it becomes hula baloo. Yes, it does. And his tweet yesterday regarding the Chinese currency, you know, declining to the threshold level at about 71 to a dollar, really, you know, brought him out of his shell. You know, the way he normally behaves usually during this period. He mentioned that, you know, the Chinese economy are involved in some type of currency manipulation, which we don't know how true this is, regarding the fact that, you know, based on the data that we see, the Chinese economy has suffered significantly since they started, you know, this trade battle. And, you know, we also understand that in Q2, the Chinese government or the Chinese economy actually lost a lot. You know, the GDP is currently at about 6.2%, and that is usually reflective of how the exchange rate, you know, fluctuates. And we understand that they operate a managed floating exchange rate at the moment. So it explains why their exchange rate is actually falling in line with what their economy is actually saying at the moment.
I'm sure you folks will be focusing more on commodities here. So let's move this a little bit into the commodity space and look at the oil, the agro-commodities, and why this is very important for us. Let's start with oil, for example.
Oil, obviously, oil prices have declined as a result because the Chinese economy, they're the major, you know, demand hub for oil prices. And, you know, regarding also the interest rates fall in the U.S. as well, has also made the situation even greater than it is. But with oil, we've always said we should try to find new ways to protect ourselves, because we can't actually control what, you know, these other countries are doing. Yeah, exactly. And right now there's so much uncertainty within the world economy. We don't know what the US is going to do. Trump is very, you know, up and down these days, and obviously with the elections coming up next year, he's going to obviously do so much more to make sure that he sticks, or he makes his...
He gets re-election.
Exactly.
So if he needs to tweak the news, tweak the information, tweet at everybody, he wants to be sure that he gets American voters on his side.
Exactly, and make sure that they're actually benefiting the most from, you know, his time period. But regarding the good side about the Chinese economy at the moment, so they currently represent about 26% of our total imports in Nigeria. So the depreciation of their currency is actually good for us in the short term. Regarding that, the imports would obviously be much more cheaper than what it used to be. So I think that's the only benefit regarding that. But with oil prices, it's time to, you know,
are you guys changing your outlook? Folks at, I think, Morgan Stanley or Goldman Sachs still keeping their outlook on 60?
I think 60 is the nice threshold, because if it goes above that, we're still in the safe net. But every government should work on, you know, the $60 a barrel, especially when they're planning for their budget.
And any likelihood things could get a little bit wacky down the line before the red?
I think so. World Bank, IMF, they've put up some red flags, especially with the global growth. They don't see anything coming or anything good coming out of it so soon. You know, they're trying to tell us that it's time to brace yourselves, especially, you know, regarding the recession in 2008, so we don't fall back into that same space. So they're giving you heads up to make sure that you protect yourself as much as you can.
Okay, so let's drill down a bit more into agro-commodities. Where are we now as far as the global space is concerned? I'm always interested in these agricultural products. What happens to wheat prices, corn, cocoa, sugar? Yesterday, the news was up that the Chinese are boycotting soy and a few other U.S. agri products.
Yeah, so with wheat and corn, obviously, U.S. is the major producer of these particular products, and it means that with these trade tensions, the Chinese are not going to be buying such products from them. term. But right now we're seeing wheat and corn prices decline, mainly because production has actually reduced significantly. And we do expect that, prices should decline further in the short term and then, pick up as time goes on regarding the production. But with cocoa, Ivory Coast, Ghana, their production has actually increased significantly. And so it's just fluctuating based on, the standard supply and demand tactics. Sugar, we've had the same analytics of the way sugar is moving based on consumer preferences and, switching consumer demand. But those particular, global agro commodities that, the Chinese buy a lot from the US, we should expect that there'll be shaky reactions to the prices of these commodities.
Yeah, it was a Monday yesterday. Today's Tuesday. I'm sure we'll still have a lot to pack into the rest of the week. Come back here on Thursday.
Of course.
Let's keep the conversation going from here. Thank you so much, Bolanle Agbaje, a member of the economic think tank at Financial Derivatives Company. So let's check in a little bit with our marketplace. Two of the big news we had in our crosshairs yesterday had to do with Dangote Flour, saying it's carefully considered. That's a technical phrase for it. 120 billion naira sale of the company to Olam International, which is bidding on behalf of Crown Flour Mills. One big story, the share price of Dangote Flour was up yesterday. MTN share price was also up, saying they're cooperating with the tax tribunal, with the FRS and the tax tribunal over tax purposes that the tax authorities slammed on the company relating to this 2015 1.4 trillion naira regulatory fine by the NCC. Those are the two companies, well, a few others helped us get 0.14% on the all-share index yesterday. Temple Ashaju is taking this up from here with Victor Chassel from FSL Securities, live from our studios in downtown Lagos. Good morning, Temple and Victor.
Knocking on my ears.
Good morning, boss, and thanks a great deal for this opportunity. So straight down to business. We got Dangote Flour Mill, and of course, Olam deal now being repriced all the way from 130 billion naira to 120 billion naira. Also, what they were offered actually in April, I think April the 23rd. That will also mean the second time that we're seeing Mr. Aliko Dangote selling this particular company. What for you is the take? What's the initial impression?
Yeah, for Dangote Flour, from the Aliko Dangote's perspective, I think for him, he's looking at the business, and I'm sure he's looking at the long-term view of this business. What can he get out of this business? Because everybody's in the business to make money. So for him, I recall about in 2012, he sold about 65% stake in Dangote Flour to Tiger Brands. And in 2015, he purchased it back. He sold at 188 million, and he bought it far lower than that amount in 2015 when Tiger Brands were unable to get those assets and return that company to profitability. So in 2017, he sold about two of his plants, the Dufil, noodles. So it looks like Dangote is trying to look at the areas where he feels he has more strength and cash out on the business where he feels now is the right time and the right price. So now with Olam coming in and saying they're coming to give the market revised binding offer from 130 to 120. We recall back then they said they were going to make a new offer, taking out net debt and making a new offer. So now they revised it from 130 to 120, which now amounts to 24 naira per share. So I think the market is going to react like we saw yesterday. The market reacted, price increased by 10%.
What is informing this reaction, basically?
Right now, what the investors are saying is that the new owner is pricing the stock at 24 naira per share, and given that the price of the market is doing 19 naira, the thing now is that if you're willing to buy this share, you must be willing to pay 24 naira or something in around that range. So I think that's why investors are willing to sell at 24, and the price is actually on the way up.
But it says again that there's going to be an EGM, an extraordinary general meeting, where, of course, this will have to be consummated by way of approval from shareholders. What's your expectation from that meeting?
I don't think we're expecting any surprises from that meeting. I expect that meeting to go on smoothly, and I expect the offer to be consummated. What I expect from the market is that around 23, 24, I expect the demand for that share to subside and the price to begin to trade around that range.
Okay, so a bit of MTN now. It says that there's a technical disagreement they're having with the regulator or the FIRS, basically the Federal Inland Revenue Service, regarding the fact that the fine should be deductible or it shouldn't be deductible. What's your view on this?
Well, MTN has always been in the news, sometimes for the good reasons, sometimes for bad reasons, but I think coming from the fine issue it had with NCC and reducing that fine from over $1 trillion to 330 billion, and as at about 2 months or 3 months ago, he informed the market that finally paid off the debt, the last outstanding debt of the 330 billion. That came as a good news to the market. Earlier last week as well, we recall that the market also was awash with the news that CBN actually granted MTN with this agent license. That was also good for the market, and they also informed the market that they're also requesting for the payment license from the CBN. So those were good news that we expected the market to react, and we saw MTN react positively with the price going up though 1%, 2%, especially with the recent half-year numbers, which actually was also good. But we came on Friday and we saw the news from FIRS that MTN did not pay tax on the 330 billion fine. It came as a surprise because, you know, these things are accounting, has to do with accounting modalities.
But what exactly does the Company Income Tax Act say about fines? Fines, are they part of expenses that are supposed to be deductible, tax deductible, and it's in the real sense?
When it comes to taxation, that's why we have tax experts, because the truth is that the way the CFO of a company would classify a fine might differ from the way a CFO of a different company might classify that tax. While also the FIRS itself might also not see it the same way you are actually seeing it. For MTN, decided to put the tax on their income statement and put it on the operating expense, meaning that it was going to reduce their PBT and tax will be paid on the PBT. Now, FIRS is saying no, that shouldn't be the way. The fine should not hit your income statement. It should be paid afterwards. So meaning your PBT will become higher and your tax liability will increase. So I think right now is in the tax tribunal. So we'll wait to see the outcome of that.
There's been so many views being explained over this particular matter. One of the points we're hearing is that it is not wholly, reasonably, and of course exclusively necessary to MTN. So it misses that portion of the necessity, and so it cannot basically generate some kind of income for them, because again, in the first place, the fact that it is a fine becomes something that is really, really avoidable.
Exactly.
It is not complementary to MTN. Anyways, we understand we don't really have so much time, but thank you so much, Victor Chiazzo, for your insight here. Back to you, Bosun.
Yes, Tempo, thank you so much. The tax tribunal is taking care of that. The MTN says we're going to comply with the decisions of the tax tribunal. But they said the money has been paid already. So let's leave it at that, folks, shall we? Let's go back after the break. We'll go back to the global space. It's the morning after a very nasty Monday, what you call the mayhem